So you didn't come here to listen to me, so I am going to throw it right open to Socheata Poeuv. Please welcome her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Can you guys hear me with this one? Okay. Thank you so much to Professor Hauff and Professor Platt for having me, and for all of you for seeing the film. There may be a chance that some of you haven't seen it, so I'm just going to show the trailer of New Year Baby. It's just a few minutes long, and it'll help jog your memory as well. So here we go. In my family, I'm known as the lucky one. I was born on the Cambodian New Year in a refugee camp. My parents never told me much more than that.
What do you like about Pa?
I like about Pa when he's not talking.
Everyone in my family all survived the Cambodian genocide. When I was a kid, I remember asking my parents, who are the Khmer Rouge? But they always dodged my questions. I was left to my own imagination. Last year, I came home for Christmas. Suddenly, my mom called a family meeting. In a back bedroom, she told us a secret she had been hiding for 25 years. I felt like I didn't know my own family, and I wondered, what other secrets had they left behind in Cambodia? Is that it? Is that how you spell it?
Actually, yeah, Gambelu.
Oh.
It's a village.
Okay. It's the Khmer Rouge camp that my father was in, Gambelu. This was my chance to finally understand what my parents went through.
Why you going to follow me up?
Thật bả đã vậy? Nó xây sự phía anh một ngày ấp chọc.
Do you remember when you met Matt?
Nó không được gọi nữa.
Like every day when I woke up still alive. Thanks God that I'm still alive.
Right now we have found a Matt Khmer home.
Tại here?
Ở đằng thang lấy bụi xa rứ nên là on na có không được plek bầm plek cầm sai rồi cầm chong là xuống đó.
I cowboy. I cowboy long time.
Who is to say who wins or who loses?
Chọn đây nè.
Sing to myself at the end of the day when I know what the blue says. And all my mistakes have become masterpieces.
Thank you for that. So again, I really want to acknowledge your college for asking me to come and speak today. And I don't mean that as an underhanded compliment to myself. I know that of all the exciting opportunities here, bringing a speaker in to talk about genocide activism can seem really sober in comparison. Are you guys familiar with the SNL skit Debbie Downer? Yeah, sometimes that's me. At parties, you know, people ask me what I do for a living, and I say, well, I started an organization that's a nonprofit that's documenting stories of the Cambodian genocide. And people sometimes don't know how to react to that in a casual setting, so they often say things like, oh, wow, that's really important. I'm going to get more guacamole or something. and I want to stop them and say, no, really, I'm a fun-loving person, I promise. But at that point, it's often too late. I didn't always identify myself as a genocide activist, and in fact, I didn't always identify myself with the Cambodian community itself. I grew up in Dallas, in the suburbs, and there is a Cambodian community there, but it's not huge at all. But something happened to me several years ago that convinced me that I didn't know anything about my culture and my people's history, and therefore I really didn't know anything about who I was. And for those of you who've seen the film, you're probably familiar with it, with this story. On Christmas Day, several years ago, my parents called this family meeting. And they're 4 siblings and 2 parents, and they brought us to this back bedroom and they closed the door. And my mother proceeded to tell me the secret that she had been hiding from me for about 25 years. And the secret is that my 2 older sisters, who had been raised as my older sisters, are actually my biological cousins who were orphaned during the Khmer Rouge time. And my older brother is actually my half-brother, who's the child of my mother and her first husband, who also died during the Khmer Rouge time. And this essentially made me the only child of my 2 parents. And so in that moment, I realized 2 things. The first is that my whole family was essentially formed by the Khmer Rouge genocide. We essentially would not exist if this event had not happened in history. And also that I didn't know anything about this history, and therefore I didn't really know who my family actually was. So it was that revelation that motivated me to go to Cambodia to learn my family's story, and what started as a glorified home video would later turn up to be this feature-length, full-length film called New Year Baby, which was aired nationally on PBS this past year on the series Independent Lens. And there's something that happened to me while I was in Cambodia with my parents that convinced me that even though, you know, my family had been living our life kind of shrouded in secrecy around this history, they really did want me, and they wanted future generations to be able to know them and to remember their story. My father and I were in Cambodia together, and I wanted to find the site of one of the concentration camps where both my parents lived, and actually the very camp where they had met and were married. And so we're traveling through Cambodia together, and I actually, through this whole process, had a hard time imagining what their living conditions were like. And I had an almost aggressive desire to know and to learn, you know, on a very basic level, what it was like. And in retrospect, I think I had a kind of survivor's guilt about being the only one in my family who was spared, you know, enduring this terrible thing. And so learning more and more about this history became a way to assuage that guilt about being the only one who was spared.